Chapter 12, here we are. We are finally at the part of Tanya, as we spoke in the last class, right, 2 weeks ago. We're at the part of Tanya where we're really talking about ourselves. And we're not just describing people or different stages of life. We are finally going to start really learning skill. Chapter 12 is really a skill learning session. So, of course, we need to learn a lot about things. And but we have to always remember that this is not just theory, this is really practice. We're finally learning about the Beinoni. Last class, we did like an hour overview about the Beinoni, right? Which was important because it's going to take us multiple classes to really learn all about the Beinoni. But the Beinoni is us, and we're going to start learning about it in depth, starting today. In depth of chapter 12. So I sent out this morning the handout. It's a significantly longer chapter than the other chapters, but it's a great chapter. Beautiful, beautiful stuff here. So, but where are we holding right now? The Alter Rebbe told us like this. The human condition is a struggle. There is a perpetual internal battle that is raging on within each and every one of us between two souls, a godly soul and an animal soul. And each of these souls have a full life that it wants to live, but there's only one body to share. And they're not in the mood of sharing. Neither of these souls are into sharing. Or in other words, they just can't see, they can't envision a space for the other soul within their lifestyle. It's just, there's no space here. It's just a total clash. It's not like we could maybe some activities we could do together. Naturally, each one of them don't see the opportunity for that. And there's a battle. Each one wants control. So the Alter Rebbe tells us, there could be many different stages of this battle. And depending what the stages of your internal battle gives you a different Hebrew title, a different description. These are not titles to walk around with, right? These are not titles that you add to your name, but just this is a title that describes what your internal spiritual status is. One is called a tzaddik, right? Let's recap this briefly. A tzaddik is somebody who the godly soul won the war. There is no animal soul to deal with. The tzaddik does no evil because it knows no evil. The tzaddik does only good because it knows only good. That's it. It's good and holy and pure, and there's nothing animalistic within the tzaddik. Obviously, we are not a tzaddik. So we dedicated one little chapter to the tzaddik, and we kind of moved on from that. Then we learned about a Rasha. Okay, a Rasha, I guess, is closer to home. A Rasha is very human. A Rasha means somebody who has both souls, and both souls win and both souls lose. The godly soul is trying to hold the line. The godly soul understands that whatever the animal soul wants, anything negative that the animal soul wants is trouble. So we got to control. But the animal soul is strong. The animal soul is an animal, is a beast. And it gets its way many times. So whenever the animal soul gets its way, that's the definition of a Rasha. A Rasha is somebody who does evil, allows his or her weaknesses to gain control, even if it's only very, very seldomly. But that's a Rasha. A Rasha is somebody who cannot keep that type of control that we hope to have, that we would like to have. That's a Rasha. But then there's a Beinoni, which is really where it's us. The Beinoni is who we could be, what God expects us to be. And it's not just about what God wants us to be. The Beinoni is the ultimate human. Or in other words, a Beinoni is a person who lives up to his humanity or her humanity 24/7. To be a Rasha is subhuman, okay? Or in other words, to be a Rasha is to deny yourself the gift of being a human. Okay, this is a little bit cryptic what I'm telling you right now. But as we learn more, you'll understand more. A Beinoni is not just like a religious status. A Beinoni is really living up life to the fullest as a human being. And we'll learn about that. So let us jump in. We'll learn a little bit about the Beinoni. This is us. This is we. This is the Alter Rebbe is going to really start teaching us life skills. You know, and now that we're starting to learn about the Beinoni, I think we have to, at the end of every single class, we should discuss what were the skills that we were taught here today that we can now incorporate in the 7 days until next week's class. There's real homework. Now this is where the rubber really hits the road, and we could start working on being a Beinoni. So a few notes before we jump in. Number one, it's going to take a few classes until we get a proper understanding of who the Beinoni is, how the Beinoni is successful as a Beinoni, what are the tricks of the trade, what are the secrets of being a Beinoni. Chapter 12 is long, chapter 13. It's going to take us a little while to really get the hang of it and see the Beinoni from all the different angles that we want to explore this character. But number two is don't be daunted. Don't read something here about the Beinoni and be like, oh my, that's totally crazy. That's beyond me to ever do or ever be. No, it's a big theme we're going to see is that being a Beinoni takes a lot of work, and it's all about moving that needle in the right direction. A Beinoni is synonymous with health. A Beinoni is synonymous with strength, with control, with mastery. So it's never about, am I perfect? Am I all the way there? It's just, am I being a bit better? Do I know the skills? It's a skill set. And can I practice those skills? So that's what it is. Let us begin, number one, with a little bit of an overview about the Beinoni. You have to remember, this is going to be our very first reading of what a Beinoni is. And then the Alter Rebbe is going to start teaching us a little bit about how the Beinoni does this. And we're going to try to get under the hood. We're going to try to really get to understand who the Beinoni is. So, chapter 12, the Beinoni, in your handouts, page 103, first page of chapter 12. And let us begin reading here, okay? So part one is a general overview of what the Beinoni is. This is our initial read of what a Beinoni is. Part one, what is a Beinoni? So here we go. As for the Beinoni, he is someone in whom the bad never dominates enough to conquer the small city, never succeeding at investing itself within this person to cause him to sin. There you have it. One quick paragraph. The Beinoni has an animal soul, and the animal soul has negativity, but the negativity of the animal soul never gets to ever exert any type of control. It is always being held at bay. That means, let's continue. That means that the three garments, meaning expressions of the animal soul, which are thought, speech, and action of Kalipa, never succeed at overcoming the divine soul by investing themselves within the Beinoni's body, brain, mouth, or any other of his 248 limbs, causing him to sin and be defiled, heaven forbid. The Rasha is somebody who loses control, and the animal soul does gain active expression within the body. Or in other words, that the animal soul is able to manifest itself in the body. And we said that doesn't have to mean that it happens daily. It could even happen once a year, maybe even once every 10 years, but it happens. The Beinoni is somebody who somehow, we don't know the secret yet of how the Beinoni gets to do this, but somehow the Beinoni has a perfect track record. It's just unbelievable consistency. never ever, the animal soul never ever is able to break through and get active expression in this body. Not in action, not in speech, not even in thought. Okay? Rather, the only soul expressions invested in this body are the three garments of expression of the divine soul, the thought, speech, and action of the 613 mitzvahs of the Torah. Only the godly soul is able to express itself in this person. And here's a key paragraph, and I want to discuss this next paragraph with you. As the person that he is today, he has never sinned all his life. He will never sin, and he hasn't once earned the title of Russia, even for one instance or one moment, all his days. That's a heavy paragraph. I want you to read that and take it in, because I want to discuss this with you. A Beinoni is somebody who never sinned, never will sin, and there was never once a Russia ever in his life, not in the past, and will never be in the future. You know what this means? It doesn't mean that practically he was never a Russia. If a Beinoni can never be a Russia, that means that we're out of the game. Right? Game over. I'll talk for myself. If a Beinoni, if one of the requirements of being a Beinoni is that you could never have been a Russia even for one moment, I'm out of the game. So that's not, which means that this whole book is basically, right, just closing now. It's done, game over. It's not what it means. But it means, it's saying something very deep. The Beinoni is somebody that in his current internal state, lapsing is an impossibility. And the possibility of lapsing in the future is an impossibility. And the fact that he lapsed in the past is something that is so distant from his current self that he can't even relate to that point of life. So that sounds heavy. Let me explain this to you. Now, we all, as human beings, we all move on from a version of who we used to once be, and we've taken on a new version of you. And very often it's to the point that we cannot even relate to the old you. I'll give you an example. Here's an easy example. So when we were babies and we're crawling on the floor, we once thought that schmutz on the floor was really yummy and very tempting. Okay. Now we are adults. We don't do it. But let's discuss why we don't do it. Is it that, you know what? I've gotten a little bit older. I stopped eating schmutz on the floor. Did you stop eating schmutz on the floor, or are you just simply totally moved on from that phase of life? It's not even like, oh, by the way, I don't do that anymore. No, it's like you're totally disconnected from that version of you. It's not like, yeah, I used to, now I don't anymore. It's more profound than that. You've totally left behind that type of lifestyle where that was of interest to you. And now there's a totally new set of interests. There's a totally new inner psyche that you possess now. And you look back at what a baby does and what you once did, and that's totally out of my, you would never catch me doing that even by mistake. So a Beinoni is not somebody who happened to not have sinned today. It's not somebody who has very good self-control, so he never gives into his weaknesses. It's somebody who is able to get him or herself to the point that I'm totally beyond this. You will not catch me doing this in my sleep. So a Beinoni, one of the requirements of a Beinoni is that there's a very deep internal state here. And the internal state is that you are mentally and emotionally detached from the possibility of doing this. That's the key. So here's an example. Imagine you're on a diet. And because you're on a diet, you're carb free. Is it an impossibility for you to eat carbs? while you're on a carb-free diet? You tell me. Max is being honest over here. The answer is no. Of course it's possible. I'm controlling myself from eating carbs, but who knows what's going to be in an hour from now. I could be totally, plowing through, I don't know what, So a Beinoni is not like somebody who's on a diet and is, really working hard on controlling himself. A Beinoni is deeper. Now, I'm very scared to give an example here because nobody is at the same level. But I'm going to give an example for myself. I try to think to myself, what's an example? What's an example of a mitzvah or a sin that for me is an impossibility? Some sins are not impossibilities for me. Some sins, unfortunately, it's even if I don't do it, but I could lapse. I have lapsed. I maybe will lapse again in the future. But what's an example of something that for me is like a total? It's not that I won't ever do it. It's just totally. It's an impossibility. So here's the example. I'll give you two examples that are my examples, and hopefully you could personalize this idea and find your own examples. Eating on Yom Kippur. Now, Yom Kippur, I get very hungry. And I'm hungry, good. And then when they're setting up the smorgasbord in the shul with the Yom Kippur, break fast food, I like that food. And it's, I'm very tempted by it. So even though I want to eat right now, and even though I'm very, very hungry, the thought of eating right now on Yom Kippur is an impossibility. It's not like, I really, really want to eat, but I got to control myself and I'm not going to eat. It's Yom Kippur. It's like I'm so mentally in this space of Yom Kippur. It's totally impossible that you will catch me eating on Yom Kippur. It's an impossibility. Now, I relate to the idea that people are hungry and that people love food and that when you're hungry, you should go eat food. Yeah, I'm human. I totally get that. I feel the hunger pangs on Yom Kippur. But eating right now is totally out of the realm. It's out of the question. And you're never going to catch me doing it. And to a point, it's not difficult for me to not eat. It's not like I have this burning moral choice within me. Should I eat? Should I not eat? Should I eat? Should I not? It's totally beyond. Here's another example. Let's say I'm driving. I'm going on a long road trip and I'm hungry and I don't have any food. And I stop by a gas station. I see there's a McDonald's there. And I see people ordering wonderful McDonald's takeout. Yeah, I'm hungry. Mentally, I'm totally divorced from the thought of even walking into a McDonald's and getting a Big Mac, whatever they call them. It's just, it's not even something I need to battle with. So that's what a Beinoni is. A Beinoni is that in every area of life, he's so motivated. He's in such a good space. And by the way, I'm saying he, but of course it's he or she. I'm just using the default. I apologize. He's there. Nothing's going wrong over here. It's. So these are my examples. I'm sure you all have your examples. What are the red lines that you don't even need to battle with, even though you do relate to the idea? It's not like you can't even imagine somebody wanting that. You could imagine. A good burger from McDonald's looks great in the advertisements, on the billboards. It doesn't look bad. It does look tempting. If there's a kosher way to get a Big Mac, I would go buy it. But you're not going to catch me going into McDonald's, not in a million years. It's an impossibility. I'm totally divorced from that option even. That's a Beinoni. That's what we mean when the Alter Rebbe says that the way he is now, he never sinned, he never will sin. It's totally outside of his realm. It's outside the realm of possibility. I'll give you an example. Let's give another example. Because we're all flawed human beings, and because we, sometimes we're weak, we could always, sometimes we're snappy at our children, and sometimes we're snappy at our spouse, and it's not good. And we know while we're doing it that it's not good, right? So the possibility of being snappy at your spouse is there. It's always there. But let's talk about a day where, because of whatever is happening, it's an impossibility. What's an example? Let's say your child is going through a very big crisis that day. And you really feel this tremendous love and pity, and you know that you need to be the parent figure that your child needs. I don't know. And in the zone that you find yourself on this day, it's impossible that you'll snap. It's impossible. Meaning, maybe yesterday I could have snapped, maybe tomorrow I'll snap. But today, in the zone that I am in right now, that weakness will not happen. I know for a fact it's not going to happen. So I'm just giving you a few different examples of what the author is trying to tell us. The Beinoni is not somebody that happened to not have sinned and is controlling himself. The Beinoni is somebody who is somehow pumping himself up to be in this very unique, inspired state of mind and state of heart. That weakness is off the table. Sin is off the table. By the way, I hate the word sin. You know why I hate the word sin? Because the word sin sounds so religious. And you know what I'm saying? But when we use the word sin here in Tanya, we don't mean just religious sins. We mean all weakness, all animalistic weakness. Anything in life that we give up control in an unhealthy way. That's what we mean over here. It can mean acts between man and God, acts between man and his fellow, interpersonal issues. So that's the Beinoni. Full control, full self-mastery, and he's in that mental space, that weakness, and giving into his animal soul is an impossibility. How are we doing? Doing good so far? Let's keep on going. Let's read it. Okay, bottom of the page. Externally, on the level of garments, on the level of behavior, the Beinoni is identical to the tzaddik, right? The tzaddik only does good. The Beinoni only does good. He's 24/7 perfect. But here's the big but. When it comes to the Beinoni's internal state, at the level of soul powers, the battle of the souls rages on, just as in the Russia. Don't you dare think even for a moment that the Beinoni doesn't struggle. Boy, oh boy, the Beinoni is struggling. He's holding down the fort. He's holding down the line. But he's got an animal soul that's got the same inner demons and the same temptations and the same weaknesses as every other flawed human being. That's what the author tells us now. Things are different, however, when it comes to the internal world of the Beinoni. The divine soul's essence and core, which is its 10 soul powers of intellect and emotion, do not have exclusive dominion and control over the small city and are not the only force exerting control. So in the Beinoni, the battle rages on. In the Beinoni, the enemy is present and alive and well and strong and is putting up a fight. So don't think the Beinoni doesn't have a battle. The Beinoni has to work very, very hard to get to where he is. But he's always holding down that line. But this is a key point of here. The animal soul is always present in the Beinoni. And this is a little bit of a spoiler alert, but the author is going to tell us that Beinoni does not even have it within him. God did not create a Beinoni with the power to eliminate the enemy. We are born and we will die with an animal soul that is healthy and actually only gets healthier and healthier. The Beinoni is not somebody who, like the tzaddik, is able to put the animal soul and keep it at bay and, lessen that threat. God willing, we'll all live ripe old lives to 120 years. Until our very last day on earth, we're going to have an animal soul that we're going to have to deal with. That's part of the life of the Beinoni. But a successful person, which is a Beinoni means successful person, is somebody who, despite having an animal soul, is always strong. So here we have it. That's the quick definition. That's the Beinoni. The $1 million question is, how do you do this? Easier said than done. The Beinoni is a very unique person. Somehow there's a trick to having this level of control. So it all begins with the next part of Tanya. Next part of Tanya is called the daily spiritual workout for a Beinoni. All right, just like everything you want to do in life, you got to practice and you got to work on it. There's one of the best cantors in the Jewish world today. Not just talking about a synagogue cantor. We're talking about the real deal, a real performer. Unbelievable voice. His name is Yaakov Stark. You could look him up on the web. He's probably one of the top 5 cantors in the Jewish world today. And he's actually been in town. The shul in West Bloomfield brings him down for the high holidays over the past few years. They managed to get a real top guy, and it's unbelievable to listen to him daven. It's a real treat. So I was once talking to him, to this Yaakov Stark, about I asked him what's his range, what's his musical range. Just every human being has a range of how low or how high they could sing. And he said he basically has the entire range. All the keys on the piano, he could sing on that, which is unbelievable. It's a crazy thought. So he told me, I said, how do you, I said, this is what I asked. I asked him, could I get there? What would it take for me to get there? He said, absolutely. He says, he says, most people could get there. He says, some people really can't get there. But he says, the human voice is very powerful. And yeah, we have a range that we are most comfortable in, and we have the range which is outside of our comfort zone, where we feel like we're choking ourselves. But if you practice, you could really stretch your vocal range pretty extreme. So what he said was, he says it's not easy for me to maintain this level of range. So I need to practice every single day. What does he do? He says every single day he goes to his piano in his home, and he hits every single key, and he sings that key with his voice. He plays that key on the piano, sings it every day. That's his exercise. And he told me like this, very interesting. He says, if I miss one day, I could feel it the next day. His voice starts losing its strength after one day of missing his exercise. 2 days that I miss, my kids could hear the difference. The 3rd day, my audience could hear the difference. 3 days, and his range is already, he's losing it. And that's very interesting. What the author is going to tell us is that the Beinoni doesn't get there easily. The Beinoni has a certain stamina and a certain willpower and a certain inner strength, and it doesn't come from nowhere. The Beinoni needs to work out every single day. If not, you're not going to be strong. If not, when it comes to extreme situations, you're just not going to have it within you. A Beinoni has to work every single day. What's the work of a Beinoni every single day? The work of the Beinoni every single day is called prayer. Morning prayers, davening every day. Okay. Now, we look at prayer, and what's prayer? Prayer is like very ritualistic, right? You open up a book, read a bunch of old Hebrew words, and that's prayer. And if you're in a synagogue, you sing a few words, there's a Kaddish, there's a Baruch. That's not prayer. Prayer is not ritual. Yeah, there's a lot of ritual to prayer, but prayer is not ritual. Prayer, ideally, by design, prayer is a mental and emotional exercise. It is a time where we are supposed to try to tap into our inner world, contemplate, meditate, and try to connect our mind and our heart with God. To develop a spiritual awareness, to develop a spiritual, emotional passion and excitement, at least on some level. Get yourself worked up, get yourself inspired, and get yourself motivated for the day. Get yourself charged for the day. Get yourself pumped for the day. That is really what prayer is all about. And if you really study the whole sequence of prayer, why are we saying all these random stuff in prayer? What's the Shema? What's the Amida? What's this thing? What's that thing? It all fits in with a systematic guide for developing a spiritual awareness and a spiritual, mental, and emotional attachment. That's really what prayer is by design. So the Beinoni doesn't take it for granted that I'll be strong today. No, who said you're going to be strong today? Who said you're going to be able to stand on guard and have that tremendous stamina to always do the right thing? So step number one, skill number one is daily exercise, daily workout. And the Beinoni does this. So before we read it inside, it's an interesting idea. What would happen if we took 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, every morning to do what it takes? And everybody's different. So, what talks to me is not what's going to talk to you. We got to find our own rhythm. What does it take to get myself spiritually energized, spiritually motivated and inspired? What does it take? I don't know. For different people, we do different things. What do I need to learn? What do I need to think about? What do I need to meditate about? What little bit of davening talks to me? We're not talking about doing this for 30 minutes or an hour. We're talking about doing this for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. But don't roll through the day. You wake up, first thing you do is get yourself in the zone. Get yourself psyched up. I think this is like, every discipline has this within it, no? If you're in the army, right, Joel, how did your day begin in the army? You don't just roll out of bed and, I don't know, mindlessly walk around. Get to work, get yourself in the zone. Get your blood going. I don't know, it's all about getting in the zone. So we're a Jew. I'm a Jew. You got to wake up in the day. We're at work. We're in the army. We're on a mission. We got great stuff to do. We've got great things to be. We got to get ourselves in that zone. That's the Beinoni's first step. You got to daven. And davening is not just, again, ritual. Davening is a mental and emotional experience. Get yourself in that zone. Get yourself inspired for the day. And that is the first step of success to the Beinoni. Okay, now before we read, I'm going to tell you one more thing. Davening in the morning has one more interesting benefit. Hey, Stuart, how are you? When the Beinoni davens in the morning, he also experiences something very special. The animal soul, when it sees the Beinoni getting all into this spiritual workout mode, you know what the animal soul says? It's not a good time. Not a good strategic time to try to attack. The godly soul is in its element. Now's not my time. And the animal soul basically just goes to sleep. That's what the Tanya says. The animal soul really checks out during the daily prayer program of the Beinoni. And that gives the Beinoni a very beautiful few moments in the day where he doesn't feel the battle. And he just has the bliss and the beauty of the experience of the godly soul. So that's like the little window of time that the Beinoni could have daily where he doesn't sense the battle. There's no tension. Just the godly soul being godly and enjoying the experience in the moment. So let's read this. This is the first step, the first life skill of being a Beinoni, the daily, getting yourself inspired daily. Let's read. Part 2, the daily spiritual workout for a Beinoni. So here we go. There are times, however, when the Beinoni does enjoy inner peace and the urges of his animal soul are temporarily quietened? That doesn't make any sense. Quieted, right? Quietened. I don't know. Okay, quietened. Yeah, there's a word. Okay. So the Alter says like this.
Quieted. There's no quietened.
No quietened, right? I don't know what that is.
Typo.
Quieted. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you. I thought so. Like, there's an English word for like when a word starts not making sense to you, even though it's a legitimate word. You know what I'm talking about? There's a word in the dictionary that describes that experience where the human mind thinks about a word so much to the point that all of a sudden starts sounding like gibberish to him. So I'm like, I wasn't sure if that was what I was experiencing. Quietin didn't make any sense to me, but like maybe I'm just tired and I don't know what. Okay, but in any case, yeah, thank you, Debbie. Okay, quieted. Okay, I'm not crazy. Okay. Here we go. That kind of control, where the godly soul has full control over everything going on, only occurs on certain occasions. For example, at the time the Beinoni performs the mitzvah of reading the Shema and prayer. Oh, the time when the Beinoni prays every day, and during the prayer we say the Shema. That's a special time for the Beinoni. That is a time of expansive consciousness above, and so too below. This is an opportune time for any person to enter into a similar state. That's some cryptic words there. The daily time to daven, Jewish law gives us a specific window of time, which is when it's the mitzvah to pray. And once, it's in the morning hours. Once you hit like 10 o'clock, every day the time changes. You could go online and look up the daily halachic times. It's called the Zmanim. And you'll see the end time for prayer. Now, you could still pray after that time, but you missed the ideal window. Okay. But Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah says, there's a reason why there's that window of time. Because that window mystically is a time of expansive consciousness above. And without getting too deep into what that means, it is an opportune time to daven. It's an opportune time to pray. If you pray at that time, you've got, the best situation set up for you to get into the right zone. Because when things are good above, you could tap into those good energies. Okay, without getting too much into the mechanics of it. Not so relevant for right here. Okay, but what's the point? Here's the point. While you daven and you've got this opportune time, and the time helps you get into the right space, right? Time has an effect on us. Space has an effect on us. You go to Israel, you get more spiritual by the Kota. Shabbos, there's a special energy of Shabbos that could help us connect more with God. Yom Kippur, there's a special energy to the day. So too, there's a certain hour or a few hours every single day where there's a special opportunity. In Kabbalah language, it's called an expansive consciousness above. But here's the point. What happens when the Beinoni davens? What's the process of davening? Let's read. At that time, you can connect your intellectual faculties of Chachma, which is wisdom, Bina, understanding, and Das, realization, to God. Connect yourself with God, mentally, cognitively. You can dive deep into meditation and contemplation of the greatness of the infinite, so as to awaken a love like coals of fire in the right side of your heart, where the divine soul manifests emotionally, to bond with God through fulfilling the Torah and its mitzvahs with love. That's prayer. Mentally connect with God until you start feeling a little bit emotional about it. And when you feel emotional about something, that's when you feel like you want to act upon it. Humans act and do things based on what we feel passionate about. I'm excited to do this. I'm going to go do it. We don't usually do things that we're not excited about. I had to go today to the post office. I can tell you that was very not exciting. That was done purely out of necessity. No one likes standing in line at the United States Postal Service, even though they were very nice today. Okay, but most things that we do as humans there's got to be a motivation. So what do? If you want to act properly today, there has to be motivation, emotional passion. Where does passion come from? The things that we think about, the things that we allow ourselves to be immersed within. When we spend enough time allowing something to sit in our brain, we usually start feeling emotionally connected to it. That's what prayer is. Prayer is a time to try to mentally connect with God, develop a spiritual awareness right now, to the point you could start feeling some form of emotional attachment. And that emotional attachment is now the impetus, the inspiration, the fuel of what we could do today. That's really what prayer is in a nutshell. Get yourself in the right zone. That's a spiritual workout. Okay, let's continue. The Alter Rebbe says, this contemplative emotional arousal is actually the message contained in the reading of the Shema, which is an instruction straight out of the Torah. And this is also the goal of the blessings that come before and after it, which are rabbinic. They are aimed at preparing you to fulfill the mitzvah of reading the Shema. All of this is explained elsewhere. We all know the Shema prayer. But if you think about it, the Shema prayer is really laying out these 3 steps. What are the 3 steps? Like in marketing, there's something called the marketing funnel, right? Basically, you start here, and then that leads you to step 2, and step 2 leads you to step 3, and step 3 leads you to step 4. There's a funnel of spiritual living. What's the funnel of spiritual living? First step is mental attachment, cognitive awareness. Step 2 is emotional attachment. Step 3 is action. What's the Shema prayer? So let's just go through Shema for a moment. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, Lord is our God, Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. What did it say afterwards? And these words shall be placed upon your heart. Teach them to your children. They should be upon your doorposts, right? Am I kind of getting it right? What's Shema saying? Start with, hear, O Israel, Lord is our God, Lord is one. Hear, O Israel. Hear doesn't mean listen. It means understand. Understand that the Lord is your God. Think about God. What happens if you think about God enough? And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul. Then there's emotion. Mental awareness leads to emotion. And what follows emotion? The action. Now I'm excited. Now I'll speak about this. Now I'll teach it to my children. Now I'll put on tefillin. Now it's all part of one sequence of events. So that is what this is what the Beinoni exercises every single day. Mental awareness that leads you to an emotional attachment that leads you now to have great, good energy to want to do good stuff today and want to stay away from doing not good stuff today. Simple as that. That's the Beinoni's morning workout. Okay, let's continue. At that time, the bad of the animal soul that is in the left ventricle of his heart is temporarily suppressed and nullified by the overwhelming good energy that is expanding in the right ventricle due to the faculties of Chachma, Bina, and Das in the brain, which are being connected to the greatness of the infinite. So the animal soul is like, whoa, the godly soul is like on fire right now. Bad time to mess, right? Meaning the animal soul is not stupid. If you want to try to attack and break the defensive line of the godly soul, do it at a time when the godly soul is, caught off guard. Don't do it in the strongest moment. So the animal soul really goes to sleep when the Beinoni gets in this zone. It's overwhelmed. The godly soul is on fire. Okay. So the Beinoni gets respite from the battle during his morning workout. But then the day begins. And the animal soul shows up very promptly for work, 9:00 a.m. He's never late to work. Davening is over. The animal soul wakes back up and says, we've got a day, we've got an agenda, and the battle ensues. Let's read. But after prayer, the vacation is over. Honeymoon is over. It was nice while it lasted. But after prayer, when the expansive consciousness of the infinite departs and the Beinoni's emotional arousal debates, what happens? And consequently, Consequently, the bad of the animal soul reemerges and reawakens in the left ventricle, craving all its cravings for the cravings of this world and its pleasures. That's it. We're right back at battle. We've got a godly soul, we've got an animal soul, and the battle is on. Oh, but now the Beinoni at least is in a good emotional space. He's inspired. He's on fire. Oh, that's key number one. So the davening is now a very great inspirational energy that the Beinoni could use. Okay, let's keep on reading it. With the departure of his focused meditation during prayer, the Beinoni returns to his normal conflicted self, harboring the respective urges of the animal and divine soul. Okay, so the Beinoni comes right back to business. Now we've got the conflict going on. Godly soul is on fire. Animal soul is on fire. They both want to do and live their life today. Now, usually, this is really a checkmate, from both sides. It's a stalemate. You've got two souls. Neither soul could weaken the other soul. At best, the godly soul is controlling, keeping at bay the other soul. So you would think that it's a toss-up. What does a toss-up mean? Sometimes the chips fall here, sometimes the chips fall there. Sometimes the godly soul should win, sometimes the animal soul should win. That's what only seems logical. But somehow the Beinoni has this 100% success rate. That even though both souls are in this perpetual stalemate, the godly soul always wins. And the animal soul never, ever gets an inch, never even gets a moment of active expression, of manifestation within the Beinoni. And now we're going to want to ask, why? What's the secret? What does the Beinoni do? So we know we at least have one skill. The one skill that we have is daily inspiration, daily workout. That's critical. We're going to learn, as we learn more of the chapter, we're going to learn how critical that is. The Beinoni can't even begin anything until you're in the inspired space. So that's step number one. But still, how does the Beinoni get this 100% consistent success rate? So let's start reading. Part 3, bottom of page 105, the Beinoni's secret to self-mastery. Only since this evil of the animal soul is not the only ruling power in the city, therefore it cannot actually manifest its craving to bring it from potential to actual. The animal soul does not manage to ever manifest what it wants. It can't get that craving out openly to be actually invested within the person in real action, speech, or thought. It can't get this Beinoni to take his mind deeply into the pleasures of this world, to consider satisfying these cravings of his heart. So even though we've got a very healthy animal soul here, for some reason the animal soul just can never push through. And the question is, what is the Beinoni's secret to consistent control over the animal soul? So dear friends, that's going to be for next class. Skill number 2. But at least we have right now skill number 1. So don't worry. If any of you are curious, I invite you to keep on reading on your own. And actually, it's very recommended. If you could read the rest of the chapter on your own, and then next week, we could discuss it properly. And it's always good when you do a little bit of your own reading in advance. But in any case, we still have more to learn about the Beinoni, a little bit more about the ups and downs, more of the skills that he taps into. But that's going to have to wait for next week. But here, let's remind ourselves what skill we have right now. Today we learned about what the Beinoni is, but we don't yet know how the Beinoni gets it done at all. And it even sounds a little bit superhuman. Absolute self-control over the animal soul, never weak. That's a big deal. Okay. But we at least have one skill, which is daily inspiration. If you don't have daily inspiration, you're gonna start losing steam. It's impossible, right? You're gonna lose momentum. Just like the cantor said, one day, and he could start feeling it. 3 days, and everybody sees it. It doesn't take long. It doesn't take long. Anything that is meant to be working and that we neglect, it starts getting a little bit rusty. It starts, it doesn't work as well. And that's the same. The same is true for us. If we want to live spiritual lives, and we are spiritual, we all have a soul. So it's just all about tapping into spiritual living. It's going to take daily work, and daily work doesn't have to be overwhelming. I want to say this again: 5 minutes. Try tomorrow morning. Wake up, make your coffee, turn off your phone. Don't read the news. Don't do that right away. Before you do anything else, just sit down and try and ask yourself, what could get me inspired? What has inspired me in the past? What could I do right now that could inspire me? Let me try something new. Maybe I could say my morning prayers. Maybe I can learn a little bit of Torah. What could I do to get my heart and my mind in a little bit of a zone? We're not talking about getting into total ecstasy. Let's be practical. A little bit connected, a little bit warmed up, a little bit in tune, a little bit in touch. And I'm going to give a very good guess that our day is going to look very different if we give ourselves those 5 minutes of a spiritual tune-up, of a spiritual workout, a little bit, get ourselves in that zone. And I can imagine that we'll be a whole different person if we do that for a few days in a row. So, dear friends, with that, we conclude for tonight. Thank you all. And we'll see you next week as we continue our journey of learning how to be a Beinoni. There we are.